I, Ethan, found myself helping my wife Emily get ready for a date with another man. While I maintained my composure on the surface, inside I was seething with anger. What irony is this? Can you imagine? Welcome to the Butterfly Tumblr Radio channel. If you enjoy this story, don't forget to subscribe and give it a thumbs up. Ethan loved completing real estate transactions, whether he was buying a home or selling. When he bought a house, he always believed he was getting a good deal. A house that was undervalued and could potentially fetch him tens of thousands of dollars. When he sold a house, he liked to receive a big check confirming his original estimate of its value. Ethan was 52 years old. He renovated houses for 32 years. He was good at it and it provided him with a very good income. He lived in a very nice house which he actually renovated himself. The fact that he bought it at a very low price and it was in a very prestigious area provided him with instant capital that was double what he paid for it. Once some improvements were made and given that he bought it with cash like all his properties, his equity doubled as soon as he renovated it because there was no mortgage. Zion came from a middle-class family when he graduated from high school. His family didn't have the money to send him to college. He became a licensed carpenter and then a licensed cabinet maker for a young man. He was making good money in the construction business, and because he lived at home, he was able to save a significant portion of his salary. Each month he was planning to attend a local college and begin studying for a degree in mechanical engineering. However, his work renovating houses distracted him. The way he started was almost an accident while he was building cabinets for a friend in an area with affordable condominiums. Ethan noticed a nearby condo where furniture and belongings were being removed. There was a for sale sign in the yard. He decided to go to the condo and talk to the owner. However, it turned out that the person who did most of the work was the owner's realtor. He showed Ethan a two-room condo on the first floor. It was in terrible condition. The carpets were worn and stained. There were holes in the walls. The sliding doors were hanging on one hinge. The cabinets were ruined. The windows were painted over and wouldn't open, and appliances didn't work properly. The realtor said the tenants had badly damaged the place and the out-of-town owner wanted to get rid of it as quickly as possible. Ethan asked how much. The realtor said $15,000, and he added, based on comparative data, similar condos in good condition in this area sell for $22,000. Based on his knowledge of construction costs, Ethan estimated that he could renovate the place better than new for about $25,000 or $3,000. However, Ethan did not have $15,000. He only had enough for a $20,000 down payment. The realtor suggested a bank he was familiar with that specialized in reconstruction loans that include the necessary funds to renovate a property. The realtor said he would help Ethan with the loan process. Luckily, Ethan had good credit and a history of on-time payments. However, he had to provide a seemingly endless list of his finances, his estimates as a contractor of the cost of improvements and realtor comparative data on similar condos in the area. The loan approval took several weeks, after which he became the owner of the property. Since Zany had a day job, he could only work on the condo in his spare time and renovations were slow. So he hired some unemployed workers for the day to do some of the work. This turned out to be a big mistake. Not only was their work rushed, but Ethan had to correct some of their shoddy work. All of this took up time. While Ethan paid his mortgage, homeowners, insurance, utilities, taxes and condo fees. Ethan's solution was to take 2 weeks off and work on the condo 12 hours a day, including weekends. It was hard and he made mistakes about what he needed to do and in what order. He also discovered that the entire air conditioning system would have to be replaced, which meant several thousand in unplanned expenses. Using his realtor, Ethan put the condo on the market before it was completely ready. Surprisingly, the buyer was a neighbor who wanted to buy a place for his mother. Ethan told the potential buyer to bring his mother to the condo and she could choose the colors and carpeting. When Ethan finished his renovations, The con window was better than new tile in the kitchen and bathrooms, new wood floors, new cabinets, new stainless steel appliances and, of course, a new air conditioning system. The new owner agreed to pay the asking price of €25. Ethan invested €4 into renovating the place. This included paying qualified tradesmen for first-class work on tile, flooring, electrical and HVAC. After paying the realtor's commission and some minor closing costs, Ethan walked away with €3 after just 3 months of work. He could have earned more if he had done things differently, but he was happy with his first investment and he vowed not to make the same mistakes again. Throughout the year, many seminars were held on real estate resale. Ethan visited many of them before investing in other properties. Most importantly, he learned about hard money bankers. These investor organists specialize in providing money, including renovation costs, to property renovators. Simply submit your proposal, along with the purchase price, renovation estimates and comparison data, and if they approve your project, you'll get your money. The disadvantage is that they charge a very high interest rate, up to 15. They may also charge points. However, if your project only takes 4 months, the interest you pay is only 5. In addition, these loans are processed very quickly, sometimes in a matter of days. This eliminates endless paperwork and the long time required to obtain a bank loan to find the perfect properties to buy. Ethan became a realtor. Thus he had access to the multiple listing service. He could find suitable properties online, visit them and go inside with his castle map and view them before making an offer. He could also independently study comparative data and find out how much similar housing cost. Most importantly, he could pay himself a commission, both when buying a property and when selling it. Over the next few years, Ethan bought, renovated and sold numerous properties. He started with small, inexpensive condominiums, moved to larger townhomes and eventually to basic family homes. He saved his profits and used them to increase down payments by taking out smaller loans. He eventually accumulated enough money to buy houses with cash. This greatly speeded up the selling process and allowed him to buy properties from anxious sellers at very low prices. Ethan also began working less on real estate on his own. He had a good contractor with a team of experienced workers. They soon learned what Ethan's preferences were in terms of flooring, rugs, lighting colors, etc. And Ethan could simply show them the property and then just let them do their job. He was able to keep the cost of the renovation to a minimum because he was able to provide ongoing work for the contractor and his team. Ethan's job became finding properties, purchasing them and then handing them over to a contractor. Sometimes he had 2 or 3 objects at the same time in different stages of renovation. At the start of this story, Ethan had a net worth of over $1 million, most of it in cash. His annual income fluctuated with the economy and the vagaries of the real estate market, but was almost always in the 6-figure range. He put most of it back into his cash account so he could buy properties with cash. However, he lived modestly and frugally in a middle-class home and few of his friends or family knew his true condition. 5 years after he became a major player in the market, Ethan married the former Miss Emily Beaumont. Emily was an extremely attractive woman for years his junior. Her family was wealthy and Emily was their only child. However, they never looked down on Ethan and his lack of education, because they knew that he earned more than enough and they understood that their daughter and Ethan were madly in love with each other. In fact, they respected him very much. Ethan and Emily had 3 daughters, Olivia, Angelica, and Ashley. They were all adults leaving home and getting married with small children. However, only Olivia lived nearby about 2 hours away. They all made it a ritual to meet on important holidays, Christmas and New Year's, Independence Day and Thanksgiving. Emily worked as a materials manager for a manufacturing company. Her job was to ensure that the resources needed for daily work were ordered on time and available when needed. This included hundreds and hundreds of tilly. She worked with dozens of vendors and suppliers every month. She was good at her job and really enjoyed it. The day it all started Friday, Ethan had just closed on another house deal. It was a middle-class house in a mixed working-class neighborhood. The previous owners were an elderly couple who had lived there for over 30 years. Unfortunately, a man recently passed away. The couple's children, who lived 1,500 m away, agreed that they would take their aging mother with them and find a place for her in a nursing home near their home. However, they had to decide what to do with the couple's home. The realtor they worked with, a colleague of Ethan's, noted that the house was a slow seller. It was neglected and in dire need of renovation. He suggested they contact Ethan as a potential renovator buyer. Ethan was invited into the house to inspect it. He had an experienced eye for the major elements of a home that needed renovation. The foundation, roof, electrical system, and HVAC system all needed restoration. He also examined the outside. He found cracks in the backyard walls, holes in the driveway, and weeds where the lawn should have been instead of grass. Finally, he noticed that all the old furniture was still in the house. The kitchen was filled with pots and pans, cooking utensils and dishes, plus the two-car garage was filled with patio furniture, tools, folding tables, and plenty of kitchen and serving equipment. Looks like the old couple once ran a catering business. The old couple's children knew that comparable houses were valued at 31.0. Ethan indicated that they would have to invest at least 5.0 in 3 months of his time to renovate the house. He went on to explain that if he were to buy it, he would need to make a profit of 5.0 to make the purchase worth his time. Therefore, the best he could offer them was 25.0 in ASEAN. He told them that he would buy the house for cash and would be responsible for removing all unnecessary items, since the house was paid off many years ago. This meant that the children would split the 25.0 profit minus closing costs. What's more, by using transactional attorney Ethan, they could close the deal within 5 days. The children didn't have to think long about the proposal. They accepted him immediately. The closing took place the following Friday at 2 p.m., and Ethan left the closing agent's office with the keys at 3:30 p.m. Since it was already late in the afternoon, instead of stopping by his office, Ethan decided to go straight home. He thought he might take Emily to celebrate another successful purchase, as he did when he bought or sold any of his properties. Emily's car was in the garage when he arrived home, which was a surprise because she wasn't usually home at that time. She didn't greet him. When he came through the door, Ethan, as he often did when he got home, poured himself to neat shots of Captain Morgan rum to ease the stress of the day. As he did this, he heard the shower running in the upstairs bathroom. After taking off his jacket, loosening his tie and rolling up his sleeves, he went upstairs to announce his presence, entering his spacious bedroom. He stopped. On the bed were 2 cocktail dresses, one black and one red. Also on the bed were 2 sets of bras and panties matching the colors of the dresses. On the floor underneath the dresses were matching high heels. Black fishnet thigh-high stockings hung on the chair at Emily's dressing table. Looking around, Ethan noticed that on Emily's dressing table lay a bright red lipstick along with a bottle of her most expensive perfume, an anniversary gift from Ethan several years ago. What the hell is going on? Ethan said to himself. Then decided to sit and wait in the bedroom sitting area until his wife came out of the bathroom. When Emily came out of the bathroom, she was wrapped in a towel and her hair was also wrapped. She didn't seize and sitting motionless on the side. She sat down on a chair at her dressing table and began powdering her arms, shoulders, and legs. When Emily took the towel off her head and shook out her locks, Ethan saw that she was at the hair salon and had her hair styled into voluminous curls and curls. He also noticed that her nails were painted bright red. What's happening? Ethan asked in a relatively normal voice. Emily jumped and let out a small scream. Zane, you scared me. I didn't know you were home. I closed the deal early in the day. Ethan replied and decided to go home instead of going back to the office and doing nothing. I was thinking that I might take my wife out to dinner to celebrate the closing. It's been a few weeks since I've done that. However, I got the impression that you already have plans. So I ask again what's going on. Yes, darling. She replied, I do have plans for this evening. I'm going out to dinner with a friend. Ethan's internal state began to swirl, but he maintained his calm demeanor. I'm guessing, based on the clothes you posted, that you're not planning on going out with a friend, but rather a man. Moreover, since I see you've got your dancing shoes out, you intend to go dancing, right? Yes, darling, Emily replied. We thought we could go dancing to spice up the evening. Can I ask who this friend you're going on a date with is? Oh, it's just a friend of mine from work. His name is Lucas Rangel. Not from work. Actually, he's a sales representative for the company we buy all our paper from. He comes into town once a month, stays overnight, and then returns to Chicago. He always makes time to talk to me, and the last couple of times he came, we went out to lunch together. He is a very nice man, very polite and attentive. And Emily quickly added, it's not really a real date. It's basically just dinner and talking with a friend. Ethan realized that Emily would be evasive about his date, so he decided to sidestep the topic and find out her intentions. What dress are you going to wear? Ethan asked. I just can't decide. Maybe you can tell me what I'd look best in. Well, Ethan began. Red will definitely catch the attention of any man. It may be too flashy for a first date, although it goes well with your lipstick and nails. But no man can resist the appeal of a sexy black cocktail dress, he continued. I feel like you hadn't dressed this smart for me in a long time, even on our dates. What's so special, black, that is? Emily said, and did not answer his question. Ethan thought for a minute that it had really been a long time since Emily had dressed so seductively for a date. Then he reproached himself. It had been a long time since he had suggested that they go out on the town together for a really chic evening that would include dancing. He fell into a routine of taking his wife out to dinner when he bought or sold a house. But it was usually at a nice local place like Clyde's or Red Lobster or TGI Fridays, and it had been an eternity since he last asked her to dance. Ethan finished his spiced rum but felt he needed another. He apologized, saying he would be back in a minute. Downstairs he poured himself another glass and thought about what was happening. His wife was apparently going on a date tonight. A hot date. She tried to minimize the impact of her actions on Ethan by minimizing their significance and making him believe it was just a dinner at some local restaurant with a random friend. Clearly, from the way she prepared for her date, there was much more to it than just that. Ethan didn't know why she thought she could give it to him so easily, but she tried. When he returned to their bedroom, Emily had already put on her bra and panties and was now pulling thigh-high stockings over her long curved legs. These are new, aren't they? Ethan asked. I bought these today. I thought they would look great with a thigh-high slit cocktail dress. It's been so long since you dressed like this for me. Ethan said, why such a special seductive ensemble for a random friend? Ethan asked casually. I just wanted to look good, was Emily's only response, trying to make it sound unusual but not very convincingly. You know, they said your breasts are more than enough to fill a black dress without a bra. If you want to look particularly sexy, you'll just have to be careful when you bend over so you don't fall out of the dress. I didn't even think about it. Zane, Emily replied. I was afraid my bra would be too visible in any of these dresses. I'll do it, and be careful, like you said. Ethan realized that Emily now felt that he was okay with her plans for the evening. This made her include him even more in preparation for her night out. Apparently she even thought that Ethan might be getting his own pleasure from the prospect of his wife with a stranger. She was very wrong. I was going to wear a diamond necklace with matching earrings. What do you think? I think you should stick with the theme of black to match your dress, Ethan said enthusiastically. I offer your black sapphire pendant. It will hang just between your breasts like a hypnotic amulet, and you must wear matching black sapphire earrings. You're right, darling. These would be the perfect accessories to go with the dress. And so tempting, Emily said, as she approved of his choice. All the while, Ethan kept a calm and collected expression on his face. Inside, however, his guts were knotted and burning with anger bordering on rage. By the time Emily had put on her cocktail dress and smoothed out the pleat around her waist and hips, she walked over to Ethan, turned her back to him and asked him to button her dress, which he did. She stepped forward to show her leg up to the top of her stockings and admired herself. She then took her purse and packed a bag of dancing shoes. She was almost ready to leave, but she paused for a moment and turned to Ethan. While I'm putting on my coat, could you bring me half a glass of your spiced rum? I'm feeling a little restless and this will help calm me down. This request was unusual in the way events unfolded. It would have been more natural for her to go downstairs and have a farewell drink with her husband. Always intuitive, Jen sensed that she wanted to leave him in the room for a few minutes. He said, of course you are nervous. This will be an eventful evening for you. I hope you take advantage of this night's opportunities. Having said this, Zen left the bedroom, leaving the door ajar. He stopped before going down the stairs and looked back into the bedroom, between the wall and the door hinge. He saw his wife quickly walk over to the side of the bed and take something from the nightstand drawer, placing it in her purse. He didn't see what it was, but he knew what it was. He then went downstairs, walked to the bar and poured Emily a glass of rum and a third double glass for himself. When he returned to the bedroom, Emily was sitting in a chair by her dressing table. Thank you, darling, she said. This is exactly what I needed. I've never seen you so beautiful and sexy. Ethan remarked. Thank you, darling, Emily replied. I'm so glad you understand what this means to me. You're so tolerant of me, and I promise to make it up to you. Maybe I could get dressed again soon and you could put on your tuxedo, and we could go to dinner in the theater, and then we could come home and you could make passionate love to me. We'll see how it goes, Ethan replied indifferently. Emily stood up and announced, I have to go. I don't want to be late. Ethan walked her down to the front door. Before you go, darling, I want to take some photos of you. Oh, I'd love that. After all, I don't dress up that often. Ethan asked Emily to stand next to the pots by the glass front door, which provided a suitable backdrop for photos. Then said, turn sideways towards me, and then turn your upper body towards the camera, like models do. Emily complied with his request and Ethan took some photos of his beautiful wife. Now he said, turn to me. Lean forward, being careful not to fall out of the dress, and lift the hem so that I can easily see a lot of legs in the top of the stocking. Almost drunk with self-satisfaction, Emily again complied with his request and Ethan took half a dozen more photos. Emily looked at her watch and said, I really have to go. She added, I don't know when I'll be back, so please don't wait for me. They answered, perfectly, don't worry. I won't wait for you. Finally, BRBR said, kiss me and wish me a nice evening. Emily leaned forward and added, kiss me on the cheek, so you don't smudge my lipstick. She turned her face slightly to the left and closed her eyes. Ethan hit his wife almost as hard as he could on her right cheek. He knew it hurt because his arm was stinging from the blow. Emily stumbled back and rested her back against the front door, completely shocked by the attack. Her expression was full of surprise and disbelief. She kept her hand on her painful cheek. The pain was significant. Zane, what I don't understand why Ethan approached his wife and said, on what planet did you ever think that I would approve of my wife going on a date with another man rest like a frivolous woman? Emily tried to answer, but I thought you were okay with it. You didn't seem to mind. You even helped me. Ethan hit her left cheek just as hard as his right. Emily was now scared. Her facial expression showed it. She didn't know how many more blows she was about to receive. He moved even closer to her face. In what alternate dimension did you assume that I would tolerate this level of disrespect, arrogance and contempt from an unfaithful wife? Did you really think that I would allow myself to be cuckolded by a wife who dresses like she's ready to have sex all night with her lover? Emily already had tears in her eyes by this time. But it was only supposed to be dinner, she cried. This is complete nonsense, Ethan snapped. He grabbed her purse and was about to open it when Emily screamed, "Don't, please don't." Ethan opened his purse and pulled out a string of gold-wrapped Trojan condoms, holding them in front of her face. "You took them from my nightstand when you sent me downstairs for your run, didn't you?" Emily tried to justify herself. "They were just in case. I didn't intend to use them, whatever." Z replied angrily. Emily began to release how poorly she had misjudged her husband. She could see that he was holding back. The tears that formed in his is due to the pain he was experiencing. "Please, Zane," she begged. "It was a big mistake. I didn't want to hurt you. I really thought I don't know what I thought. I was so fascinated by this man, he was giving me so much attention. I should never have gotten involved in this. I'll cancel the date. We'll stay home together. We can get cozy in front of the fireplace. Just you and me, unlikely." Ethan said, "If you stay here, I'll spank you until I'm tired of raising my hand." Ethan took his wife's scope and purse and pushed them into her hands. "I want you out of here right now. Don't even think about coming back until tomorrow afternoon, because I won't let you in with that." Ethan opened the front door and forced his wife out onto the porch to her car. He opened the car door and pushed her inside. "You won't need this," he said. As he grabbed her purse and found her keys, he took the house key off the key fob. He also removed the automatic garage door remote control from the sunshade. "But where should I go?" Emily cried. "I don't care." Ethan replied, "Stay with Olivia for a few days. It's over a 2-hour drive." Emily complained. "Then find a Hampton Inn or Holiday Express and stay there." "I don't care. Just get out of my sight." Emily saw that her husband was completely serious and, at the same time, very angry. Ready to hurt her even more, she started the car, pulled out into the street and sped off. Ethan watched her drive away until she was out of sight. He returned to the house. When he entered, he saw a bag of dancing shoes on the floor. He thought to himself, she probably won't need them tonight. Ethan suddenly felt tired. He walked over to his bar and poured himself another 4th double glass of spiced rum and collapsed into his leather chair. He suddenly felt a great loss and began to cry. He felt other emotions: anger, humiliation and pain. As the thoughts in his head became more organized, he realized that he had to do something. He needed to find a way to show his extreme displeasure with his wife's actions. That was so clear that it couldn't be misunderstood. He needed to do something to show that he was not going to forgive an offense of this magnitude. His first thought was to kick her out of the house. He thought about gathering all her things and putting them in large black trash bags, leaving them outside so she could pick them up. When she returned, he went upstairs to look around. His wife had a huge wardrobe in her closet and dozens of pairs of shoes. She also had clothes in almost every closet in the house. She had 12 dresser drawers full of blouses, sweaters, underwear, etc. As they realized that it would take him a week to remove all her things from the house. He returned to the comfort of his chair and rocked back and forth, trying to think of a way to get rid of all his unhappiness in the middle of a sip of rum. A solution occurred to him. The solution was so simple he smiled to himself. Ethan remembered that less than 5 hours ago he bought a fully furnished house. It still had utilities, connected gas, water, and electricity. Wi-Fi was also active. He was ready to move in and he had the keys in his briefcase. He would need to take with him only a minimal amount of clothing and accessories, several suits and jackets, trousers, shirts for work and leisure. All this would fit into 2 large suitcases. He could pack his laptop, printer, scanner, fax and other computer equipment in the back seat. By 23s, Ethan was ready to travel. He left the house open, the house key lying on the kitchen table next to the automatic garage door control. His new home was only 45 minutes from his current home. He drove in silence. Not even the radio was on. He still couldn't believe that his 20-year marriage had been so badly damaged, perhaps irrevocably, and damaged by the man he loved and trusted the most. He sometimes held back tears during his trip. When he arrived at the cul-de-sac where his new home was located, it was very dark. There were no streetlights. He drove slowly to his new place and pulled into the driveway. He parked in the carport, which was located next to the side entrance to the house. The double-detached garage was another 50 feet up the driveway. The porch light was on. He left it on. When he finished his last inspection earlier that day, they used his keys to enter the house through the side door on the back porch and began to turn on the lights. Although the house was neatly cleaned, it was still in a state of repair. Ethan walked from the back porch into the kitchen. The house did not have a formal dining room. Instead, there was a very large kitchen area that served as a dining area with a 5 feet diameter round wooden table in the center and 6 matching chairs. Ethan continued into the family room, the living room, and finally the bedrooms. As he walked through the house, his thoughts determined what needed to be upgraded and changed to make the house sellable. Although he had no plans to resell the house anytime soon, he usually completely rebuilt a house of this condition. Everything was going: cabinets, flooring, appliances, bathrooms, light fixtures, everything. However, since he was going to make this house his home for the near future, he had to do the renovations gradually in order to have a place to live. Ethan began unloading his car. Although the house had a moderate amount of storage space, half of it was taken up by the late owner's belongings. The family, acting on behalf of their mother, took only what was valuable to her: clothes, photographs and family albums, a wedding china set, some works of art, etc. They even left an outdated computer system in one of the bedrooms, which they used as an office and sewing room. Ethan moved his computer and peripherals into the same space. Ethan was tired. It was late, and his double spice drums were making their presence felt. There were sheets and blankets in the linen closet. Once he finished making the bed, Jay stripped down to his shorts and went to bed. The next morning he woke up early as sunlight flooded the bedroom. He didn't close the curtains before going to bed. He had a slight hangover. He quickly showered, dressed in casual clothes, and then went to the kitchen to make coffee. The elderly couple had an old-fashioned coffee maker, and luckily he found a jar of coffee in the pantry. Ethan approved of the gas stove, even though it was very old. While he drank his coffee, he looked through all the cabinets and drawers in the kitchen. They were filled with all sorts of pots and pans, kitchen utensils, glassware, drying canned foods, serving utensils and cookbooks. Ethan noticed that there were 2 full china sets that had not been taken. He later learned that the mother had inherited her mother's china as well as her mother-in-law's china. Ethan made himself a breakfast of oatmeal, washed the dishes, put them in the dishwasher, and heated out to the garage. He had seen it before and knew that it was so packed with boxes and CR8Is that not even one car would fit into a 2-car garage. He opened some of the boxes and found a large amount of equipment used by catering companies to serve customers. Looks like it was the job of both previous owners, and they just packed up their stuff when they retired and forgot about it. They left their only car in the carport. In the backyard there was a rather nice partially enclosed patio area that opened directly from the sliding glass doors of both the family room and the master bedroom. Pots with plants hung on the beams above. It needed a bit of sprucing up, but it was perfectly usable the way it was. There was an old rusty barbecue in the corner of the patio that Zay was going to throw out and replace with a small gas barbecue. 3 outdoor lamps covered in translucent mosaic tiles hung above the beams. Ethan imagined the old couple often used their patio for morning coffee and evening wine. After inspecting the house, garage, and yard, Ethan made a plan to renovate the place. First, he organized a sale of everything that could be sold. What didn't sell he took to a second-hand store. What was not suited for the second-hand store he took to the landfill. He then began restoring the house and grounds. Upon inspection of the yard, Zane discovered that it was full of weeds. There was no grass as such. The brick flower beds were cracked and bricks were missing. The asphalt driveway was in need of repair. He noticed that the 3 concrete block walls separating his home from its neighbors were damaged. Someone hit them with a car. In the past, Ethan called his contractor Alejandro Quintero, who was working on Ethan's townhouse and detached home with his team of craftsmen. He asked Caesar to come to his new place so they could discuss a plan of action for renovating the house. While Ethan waited for Caesar in his front yard, he met the first of his new neighbors, a Vietnamese widow about 50 years old who lived in the house on the left, as seen from the street, and her Asian mother. The widow's name was Lee, which was the English form of her Vietnamese name. Her mother's name was Gina, which was also a form of her Vietnamese name. Lee spoke English with a strong accent. Her mother spoke almost no English. Lee was on her way to work but said she would be his guide around the area and introduce him to other residents of the cul-de-sac. Ethan said he would appreciate the courtesy. Just then Carl pulled up in his pickup truck. Ethan and Caesar greeted each other like the friends they had become, and then Caesar looked at the front of the house. Yes, he said, this is by far the least attractive house on the street. I don't know what else can be done here, but we definitely need to give this place a little curb appeal. Ethan and Carl looked around the house and Caesar saw the same things that needed to be done that Ethan saw. They then walked around the perimeter of the cul-de-sac. Caesar noted that many homes are in need of repairs: corroded walkways, broken flower beds, cracked walls, rickety fences, missing shutters, unkempt lawns full of weeds, and so on. After they decided on renovation priorities, Alejandro left and Ethan was left alone again. He turned on his cell phone and noticed the calls. All but one were from his wife, starting around 2 p.m., probably around the time she returned home from her night out. He listened to them on voicemail. "Sam," she begged. "Ed, I just came home and found that you moved out. Please talk to me. I'm so sorry that I disappointed you so much," and so on and so on. The rest of the messages were similar. "Please, Zane," she begged. "Things went so bad for me last night. I just have to explain. Don't leave me like this." And so on and so on. Ethan skipped to the last message. It was from his daughter. "Olivia, Dad, what did you do to Mom? She called me this afternoon and cried when she told me that you moved out of the house and she doesn't know where you are. She even said that you hit her. How could she do that?" Zay called his daughter. She immediately responded and started hitting on him. "Dad, I don't know what's going on between you and Mom, but you need to come home and fix it." He answered her. "Did your mother tell you why I left home? Why I left her? Whatever. It was Dad. It couldn't be that bad, Dad. Actually, Olivia, it was in fact she left me first. Before you call me again, talk to your mom and demand that she tell you the absolute truth about why I left her. Then I'll talk to you again. Okay." Dad, Olivia agreed. "Mom is coming to stay with us for a few days. She didn't want to stay in your big house alone." Ethan didn't hear from Olivia for 3 days. During this time, Caesar began cleaning up Ethan's yard. The first thing he did was repair the walls on each side of the house. In addition to the regular concrete blocks, he added red block caps to make them look more decorative and less harsh. Without asking his neighbors, Ethan asked Alejandro to make similar repairs to all the concrete walls in the area. Word spread quickly and neighbors came out of their homes to thank the new man on the block for his work. For Ethan, it was just a small added cost to get all the repairs done. He justified this by thinking that by improving all the houses, he was increasing the value of his own property. As it turns out, when Alejandro was installing a new asphalt driveway at Ethan's detached home, he intentionally ordered more asphalt than was needed to completely replace Ethan's driveway. Ethan asked Caesar's workers to inspect the driveways of each of the other houses on the cul-de-sac, filling holes and cracks and applying a protective coating to each driveway. The extra expense was not small for Ethan, but it was worth it. Meanwhile, Ethan organized and announced his sale. All of his neighbors on the Cool-Sea attended the sale, as well as many people from surrounding areas. It was a success and got rid of most of the stuff that was cluttering his house and garage. He was cleaning up unsold items and putting them in Alejandro's pickup truck for transport to the thrift store when he received a call from his daughter. "Dad, we need to meet. I need to show and tell you things you don't know. I know what I know. I know what I saw," Ethan replied. "Did your mother tell you how she treated me?" "Did she tell you everything?" "Mom told me everything. Absolutely everything." Olivia replied, "And a lot of things you don't know." Ethan replied, "If this is your mom trying to talk to me or get back together, forget it. She's already shown me how little respect she has for me." Olivia responded sharply, "Dad, Mom knows I'm going to talk to you, but she won't be with me. By the way, when she told me what happened, I scolded her. I can't believe she treated my dad like that. I don't blame you for anything you did. Mom needed exactly that lesson. I can come to you wherever you are and talk to you about everything that happened. It's more than you know." Ethan felt his daughter crying. "I really don't want anyone to know where I live at the moment. I'll meet you at the TGI Fridays near your house tomorrow at 11 a.m. and we'll talk." "Okay, Dad," Olivia said. "See you then." "I love you." "Dad, I love you too." "Daughter," he said before hanging up. The renovation of the house continued. Ethan ordered new windows. Many of the windows in the house were painted over and could not be opened. Ethan also ordered French doors with additional screen doors for the family room and master bedroom. Ethan walked into TGI Fridays at exactly 11 a.m. His daughter was already waiting for him in the restaurant lobby. They hugged and asked for a table in the corner. Both ordered coffee. There were many people in the restaurant at this time of day. Ethan got straight to the point. "What do you want to discuss?" "Olivia, if this is what I did after your mom got dressed for her hot date, I don't regret anything. I don't have to put up with such disdainful treatment, especially from my wife." Dad, Olivia began. "This is more serious than you can imagine, and you won't like what I'm about to say, not even a little bit. But first you have to know that Mom is horrible. She's so sorry for her actions that she can't stop crying. She's very sorry for how much she hurt you. She couldn't stay with us longer than the weekend because she needed to be at home where she was closer to work. I visited her twice. All she does is go to work for herself to make it to the end of the day, and then returns home to an empty house. After what she tried to do to me, I don't have any feelings for her." Ethan counted. Olivia pulled out the items from her large bag, a large brown envelope and a regular letter-sized envelope. Dad, Olivia began picking up the smaller envelope. "This is Mom's apology letter for you. She knows you don't want to talk to her, and even if you did, she's not sure she wants you to look at her. She is so ashamed. I can't force you to read the letter. You can just throw it away if you want. But anyway, here it is. Maybe you can read it later." "What's in the big envelope?" Ethan asked Dad. "This is a complete description of Mom's relationship with the salesman she was on a date with this. This is written with surgical precision at my urgent request." "Why should I read this?" Ethan asked. "I really don't care. This wasn't written for you, Dad. It was written for the HR department at Mom's work. And why should they care what Emily did on her own time and with a non-company employee?" Dad, Olivia said, taking Ethan's hands and with a sad expression on her face. "I need to tell you what happened after you kicked Mom out of the house. It will be painful, but it's better to hear it from me than from anyone else. I told her to stay with you tonight. I didn't want her around. I wasn't sure. I didn't want to spank her again. I know that Dad, Olivia said when she complained that the drive was long. You advised her to find a motel or hotel to stay at. Fine. Then asked. Mom was in pain, not just because of the slaps, but she already realized how badly she had screwed up. No matter how angry you seemed, she knew that you were truly hurt by her behavior. She was confused too. One minute you're helping her get ready for a date, which is clearly against your true nature, and the next you're slapping her and yelling at her. I never yelled at her, Ethan retorted. I told her very sternly that I thought she was planning to cuckold me by having sex with another man. She claimed she never intended to have sex with him. Zion replied she took the protective equipment from my nightstand. I know, Dad. Andrea replied you couldn't come to a different conclusion, Dad. When Mom left the house she heard inside. She was confused and repentant in her extremely emotional state. She somehow came to the conclusion that she should meet the seller, as she had planned to tell him that everything between them was over and never contact her again. At that time she still thought he was a good guy, a friend. Then she was going to come to my house and spend the night. When she arrived at the hotel, she immediately went to the women's room. Her makeup was a mess and her cheeks were still red and slightly puffy. When she was ready, she entered the restaurant and found her date Lucas, who already had a table for them. Mom didn't greet him with a peck on the cheek or a hug. He immediately realized that something was wrong. Mom got straight to the point, but before she could say it all, she started crying. Her partner did everything he could to comfort her. He hugged her and told her everything would be okay. He ordered a glass of wine to help her calm down. When the wine arrived, she drank the entire glass in one go on an empty stomach. Lucas told her not to worry about their relationship and that he understood that. However, he suggested that perhaps you were too bossy. After all, they were just about to have dinner and then he ordered a bottle of wine for the table. He continued to scold you, Dad, saying that your reaction was too over the top. No real man would ever hit a woman. The wine began to soften. My mother and she began to relax a little and she continued to drink the wine that Lucas gave her soon. My mother felt the full effect of alcohol. She told Lucas that she had to leave and make the 2-hour drive to my house. He told her he didn't think she was fit to drive and she probably wasn't. Mom told Lucas that if she couldn't drive, she would get a hotel room and spend the night and then drive to my house the next morning. Lucas said he would check availability at the front desk. When he returned, he told her that the hotel was booked because of a convention in town. In addition, he invited her to rest for a few hours in his room. It was still early evening, and she could sleep for a few hours before she left. Apparently Mom was very busy and needed help. Just getting to the elevator once in Lucas's room, he went from helping her to kissing her neck. His mother pushed him away and angrily told him that their relationship was over. All she wanted to do was lie down for a few hours. She said she felt dizzy and practically collapsed on the bed. Her partner was kind enough to lift her feet onto the bed and take off her shoes. She seems to remember Lucas massaging her legs, but she soon fell asleep. Ethan sat in silence, fascinated by the story unfolding before him. Olivia continued. The next thing Mom remembers is sex. It was over, in just a few seconds. Mom told me she thought it was you. She didn't realize at that moment that she wasn't at home in your bed. Zen slammed his hand on the table so she slept with him. Anyway, he exclaimed out. Olivia stopped him. Mom didn't consent to sex with this guy. Ethan remembered that evening for Olivia. Let's see, she dresses provocatively for a hot date. Meets him at his hotel restaurant. They have a drink together. She goes up to his room of her own accord and now claims no consent. Is this true? Yes, that Olivia said. But that's not all. Early in the morning, when it was just beginning to get light outside, my mother woke up and realized that she was hugged by a naked man lying in bed with her. He kept one hand on her chest and tried to have sex with her again. She pushed the man away and jumped out of bed, now sober with only a headache. Mom realized what had happened. Lucas got her drunk and then took advantage of her while she slept and tried to do it again. She screamed at him and screamed that she never wanted him to have sex with her. Lucas laughed and told her that he didn't feel that way last night. Mom knew what had happened and she immediately felt ashamed of herself for letting this man lead her down the garden path for months, and all he ever wanted to do was get into her pants. Mom went to the bathroom, took a shower, cleaned herself up and left the hotel. She returned home hoping to find you there, tell you what happened to her and ask for your forgiveness. Arriving at the house, she quickly noted that you had moved out. Mom was beside herself with guilt and shame. Then she called me and told me that she had a fight with you, hit her twice and kicked her out of the house. I told her to come to my house and we will decide what to do after that. When I called you for the first time when my mother came to my house, she was still confused. I asked her what happened. She avoided giving direct answers at the time, because I think she was very ashamed of how she treated you so badly and what happened to her. She only told me that you two had a fight and that you slapped her twice and then kicked her out of the house. She said nothing more before she retreated to the guest room and refused to tell me any more. Only the next day I was able to find out the whole story from my mother. Judging by her behavior and tears, I believe that she told me everything exactly as it happened. I listened to all this, was not convinced. My wife got dressed for a hot date that involved more than dinner and dancing. What about the protective equipment she hid in her purse? I asked, you can tell me they weren't meant to be used later that night. You're going to have some faith. That Mom said that if she didn't accept them, then she wouldn't have the slightest chance of having sex with him. But if she had them, then the only thing standing between her and the hotel room bed was her willpower. She wouldn't entertain AI in this man simply because she chose not to. She thought she needed to feel wanted. This sounded like nonsense to say, and he said so. She'd have a hard time convincing me of that. Olivia changed the subject then. Mom found a counselor who will help her understand what she did and why. The advisor also wanted to meet with you, but you couldn't be found and we decided you probably wouldn't participate anyway. Sometimes I come in instead of you just to listen to what Mom says and understand what situation led to her stupidity. Ethan confirmed Olivia's conclusion that he would not have participated in counseling because he felt the problem was entirely of Emily's making. Let her understand her actions. Olivia changed the subject again. Mom's HR department read Mom's statement about the incident, consulted with the firm's lawyer, and decided that any rape allegations against Lucas would not prevail. It was a classic case of he said, she said. However, they passed on Mom's description of events to Lucas's HR department. Lucas readily admitted to having sex with his mom but said it was consensual. The two HR departments agreed that it was a he said, she said scenario and it would be futile to try to hold Lucas accountable. However, Lucas's company noted that it was inappropriate for one of their salespeople to have sex with a married woman or anyone else in the company of a customer. Lucas was fired from his job. Ethan and Olivia sat in silence for a long time. This was a lot of information for Ethan to absorb. He initially vaguely thought that he would stay away from Emily for a while before giving her the opportunity to apologize to him for her actions. He knew it would be difficult to move forward, especially at first, but he thought that with time their lives would return to normal. But now everything was different. She actually had sex with her so-called friend, and regardless of Olivia's description of events, Ethan wasn't sure it wasn't on purpose. He realized that there was a conflict within him that he could not resolve. His immediate solution to this was to do nothing. At the moment, he was going to continue his alternative life and stay away from Emily. He talked to Olivia from time to time and she urged him to talk to his wife and sort things out. It was actually an open wound. It never occurred to Ethan to divorce Emily. He could achieve almost the same thing by simply separating himself from his old life with her. Over the next few days and then weeks, Ethan continued to renovate his new home and also help his neighbors improve the appearance of their homes. He also resumed his career buying, renovating and selling distressed properties. Among other things, he renovated and landscaped a small island in the middle of a cul-de-sac. It became a quiet place to relax in the middle of the day or evening, a meeting place for neighbors when they had a party or an ideal place to celebrate a birthday. The local ladies found out that Ethan was a bad cook. Moreover, they learned that he usually ate a frozen sandwich for breakfast in the morning and a frozen dinner in the evening. To show their gratitude, the neighborhood wives organized the preparation of casseroles, meat, loaves, soups, salads, desserts and a variety of other dishes so that their generous new resident would be well provided with good food. Late in the afternoon, as Ethan was reviewing the cost spreadsheet for purchasing and renovating the new property, there was a knock on the door. Without thinking about it, he saved his work on the computer and opened the door. It was not one of his neighbors as he thought it was Emily. "Emily," Ethan said, "I didn't expect to see you here. How did you find me?" Emily didn't answer his question. Instead, she said, "Can I come?" in much of the anger inside Ethan that he had felt the last time he saw his wife had diminished. Ethan suddenly felt like he should be polite. "Please come in," was all he said, still stunned by his wife's sudden appearance. Emily clearly dressed for the occasion. She wore a simple white sundress and matching flats. Her hair was down and she looked washed and clean. Emily entered the house with several bags of groceries. "Where's the kitchen?" she asked. "I need to put this down." Ethan pointed to the swinging kitchen door adjacent to the dining room, and Emily immediately walked through the door and placed the bags on the countertop. She returned and looked around. "It's a little sparse, but it's nice." "I think you fixed it, whatever it was," Zen replied. "I haven't completely finished the renovation yet, but it's livable." "Can I get a tour?" asked Emily. Of course, they replied and led her through the living room, down the hallway, through each of the bedrooms and finally into the master bedroom. At each stop, Ethan pointed out what he had already done and what he still needed to do. Emily noted that compared to their real home, there wasn't much closet space. Ethan replied that he had more than enough and that his clothes only took up half of what he had. Emily also commented on the double bed. "It's more than big enough for me," Ethan said, "and besides, a double bed would fill up the room too much." Emily didn't hesitate to make a couple of suggestions on things like curtains and carpeting. In the past, Ethan has often used her ideas in homes he has renovated. He then led her through the new French doors into the living room and onto the screen patio. Emily loved the cozy atmosphere of the small patio and commented it would be great to relax here in the evening after dinner. "I often relax here in the evening after dinner with a glass of my favorite strong red wine. It puts me in the mood for sleep back in the living room." Ethan had finally come to his senses after his wife's unexpected appearance. "How did you find me?" Ethan asked. "It wasn't easy. Emily believed I was able to get some help and some insight into where you might be from your colleagues in your real estate office. I drove by a few days ago and saw your car in the carport. I thought long and hard about ending your new life, but I needed to see you at least for a little while, so I decided to come over and cook dinner for you. I know you're a terrible cook, so I brought everything I needed for a meatloaf dinner. I hoped you would tolerate me long enough to let me cook you dinner and then leave you alone again." She added, "You can help me in the kitchen, or whatever you're doing, I'll call you when dinner is ready. I have a spreadsheet program that I need to finish and then I'll do what I can to help with dinner." Wenzen came into the kitchen 20 minutes later and offered to help. Emily turned to him a little teary-eyed and said, "You don't really need my help. Do you? Your refrigerator and freezer are full of food. I didn't find a single frozen dinner in the entire kitchen. The neighbors' wives take very good care of me in terms of food." Ethan said, "I have helped several of my neighbors with small projects to improve the appearance of their homes, and they pay me with a casserole or brisket from time to time. However, I would absolutely love one of your meatloaf dinners, and I more than appreciate the fact that you came here to make this. For me, that's a weak excuse to see you again. Emily replied, I missed you so much. If you have read my letter to you know how sorry I am for treating you so badly. However, I wanted to tell you personally that I am so remorseful for my actions. A stupid middle-aged lady who thought she needed a little fun in her daily life after a young handsome Lothario showed me some attention. I was such a fool. Please, Emily. Ethan said, I know you're sorry, and Olivia told me what happened to you that night. At first, I thought you followed through, but Olivia was convinced you were being used and manipulated. I don't think she would mislead me, just to make you seem less guilty. We don't need to talk about this anymore tonight, Ethan said, and the topic was closed. Our dinner is ready, Emily said to change the subject. This meatloaf will last you for days. I hope you like it. With that, Emily picked up her purse and headed for the door. Wait, Ethan exclaimed. Won't you stay for dinner? I set up seating for 2 people at the table. No, love, Emily replied. I desperately wanted to see you again, but I don't want to interfere with your new life. If you don't mind, I'd like to come back next Friday and cook dinner for you again. That would be great, Ethan replied, but next time I'd like you to stay, so we can have dinner together and enjoy a glass of wine on the patio. I'd like that, Ethan, but I have to see how guilty I still feel with that. Emily walked out the door and soon drove away from Ethan's house. While Ethan has adjusted to living alone, he is also adjusted to not feeling lonely now. After the sudden departure of his wife, he felt lonely. Ethan's feelings for his wife were mixed. He was still hurt and a little angry that Emily would even think about going on a date with someone other than himself. On the other hand, he missed being with his old wife. He felt like Emily was trying to be that old wife again. The following Friday evening, Emily showed up at the door again. This time she had steaks that she wanted him to grill, while she prepared the salad, potatoes and vegetables. This time Ethan was ready for her with a bottle of wine, which they both started drinking while they prepared dinner. They ate on the covered trellis terrace at an outdoor table large enough for 2 people. The conversation was mostly light. Emily asked Ethan about his job and the condition of the houses he worked on, and Ethan asked about Emily's daily activities. Emily admitted that she had a lot of time to herself these days after she got home from work, started reading a lot and even joined a book club. They asked about the job and immediately regretted doing it. Emily admitted that she still feels awkward being seen in the office. No one had ever told her anything about the incident with the sales representative, but everyone knew the story. After a pleasant evening, Emily again brushed it off, saying she still didn't want to interfere with Ethan's new lifestyle. She added that she was looking forward to seeing him once a week and cooking dinner for him. Ethan agreed that this was a new routine that he would like to continue as well. One Thursday in the 4th week since Emily started coming over to his house, Ethan emailed her to let her know that the people in his CSOC were having a party on Saturday and that she didn't have to cook dinner on Friday or take anything with her. Do not bring. She replied that she would at least bring a bowl of potato salad to the party. When they opened the door, he was pleasantly surprised at how good Emily looked. She was wearing a beautiful summer dress with a moderate neckline. They relaxed until it was time to go to the party, which started around 3:00 p.m. And Emily explained that she wanted to look good for the neighbors, but it was obvious to Zane that she wanted to look good for him. Party organizers were busy arranging tables and neighbors were bringing out lounge chairs to sit on. One of the neighbors was an avid barbecue enthusiast and would fire up the gas on his barbecue while cooking several hundred worth of steak, chicken and sausage. Almost all the neighbors brought beer, wine, soft drinks and hard drinks to the party. Ethan brought several bottles of his favorite dark red wine. When neighbors came over, Ethan introduced them to Emily. They were all surprised by her gifts and accidentally told her that they didn't know if Ethan was actually married. Then of course they had to wonder why Ethan and Emily weren't living in the same house together. Throughout the day and evening, Ethan received compliments on how beautiful and charming his wife was. At the same time, Emily was told numerous stories about how much Ethan had done for the area. Several neighbors showed Emily the improvements Ethan had made to their homes. Although all the neighbors were working men and women, the Emily said they had all taken a lot more pride in the appearance of their homes since Ethan moved in gradually. When everyone got used to eating and drinking, the men seemed drawn to each other and talked about sports. All the women seemed to want to know more about Emily and gathered around her. They all really wanted to know more about the relationship between Ethan and Emily. Meanwhile, the children played together in the street and drew with chalk on the asphalt. It was already late evening when the party began to break up. Parents needed to put their children to bed. Most people helped trap up the leftovers. As Ethan carried the beach chairs back to his house, he realized he had drunk a lot of wine. It was also obvious that Emily was feeling a little tipsy as well. Once home, Emily began packing her things in preparation for the trip home. "I don't think you should go home tonight," Ethan said. "You're too drunk." "What should I do?" Emily replied, feeling like she shouldn't stay because she didn't want to push her into an emotional corner. "You can stay in the extra bedroom," he said. "I have a t-shirt you can sleep in." "Thanks," Emily said, "though I don't want to cause you any trouble." Ethan disappeared into his bedroom and returned with a white t-shirt. Emily took it, went into the bedroom, and closed the door. Ethan was turning off the lights and lowering the temperature when he heard Emily calling his name. Turning, he saw his wife standing at the entrance to the corridor. She took off her dress and put on a t-shirt. Ethan has always favored tight t-shirts, and Emily's t-shirts hugged her curves very nicely. Her breasts were clearly defined, as was her narrow waist, which had a towel around it. "Ethan, please, if you could give me a good night hug before I go to bed." Ethan was mesmerized by the sexy figure in front of him for a minute. Ethan forgot why he was angry with her and stepped forward to put his arm around her waist. Emily in turn wrapped her arms around his neck and rested her head on his shoulder. They held each other close for only a few seconds before Emily broke the hug and, without saying anything, hurried back to the bedroom and closed the door. Ethan was almost glad the hug was so short. He felt Emily's body react. If the hug had lasted just a few seconds longer, she would have felt how much he wanted her. When Ethan woke up on Sunday morning, he had a slight headache, a hangover from the night before. He trudged into the bathroom to take a shower. Before doing this, he took to Exo tablets. He could tell by the sound of the shower in the family bathroom that Emily had woken up before him after getting dressed. Ethan wandered into the kitchen, where he found Emily in a sundress, preparing a standard breakfast of bacon, eggs, toast, juice, and coffee. Emily cheerfully told him, "Your neighbors may bring you food for dinner, but I don't think you usually have a good breakfast. All I found in the freezer were frozen breakfast sandwiches." "You're right," they replied. "I usually eat either a breakfast sandwich or a protein drink before I head out the door." Looking outside, Ethan noted that it was a nice sunny morning. "Why don't we have lunch on the patio?" he suggested. "I'll set the table after Emily brought the food to the table." Ethan held her chair until she sat down. "It's a beautiful morning. Zane, thank you for last night and thank you for this morning. This is the greatest happiness I have felt in a long time." "I feel the same way," Ethan replied. Emily took the opportunity to get a feel for how Ethan felt about their relationship, but she didn't want to push things too hard or fast. "Do you have any ideas about when you might want to come home?" she asked, trying to make it a normal question. After thinking about it for a few minutes, Ethan replied, "I don't know if I want to go home again." Emily took this to mean he didn't want to date her again, and she was sad but tried not to show it. "Well, if so, then I'll wait until you do. I'd like to continue coming here on Fridays and cooking you dinner. You do not mind?" "Yes, I would like that. I always thought you were the best chef in the world." Emily was hurt that Ethan only wanted her for the cooking, but she had a feeling he wanted something more from her. but she wasn't about to rush him. Emily returned the following Friday afternoon. She looked good. She was wearing a pink pleated skirt and a cashmere sweater. The skirt was short enough to show off her shapely legs, and the sweater was tight enough to show off her proudsy breasts. "What are you going to cook this time?" Ethan asked. "I brought some marbled dry rye steaks with me that are looking forward to being grilled. If you cook, I'll make a salad with lettuce, tomato, avocado and bacon," she then added. "I also brought 2 bottles of strong red wine. I was hoping to get so drunk tonight that you asked me to stay again." Zane was oblivious to how his relationship with Emily was developing. He saw that they were renewing their marriage, but he also knew that he still had anger issues. Perhaps this night would be a good time to take them outside, but he didn't know how to start the conversation, and he didn't want a harsh discussion of the past. "We'll see how the evening goes," Ethan replied without making any commitment, stirring on the gas barbecue and closing the lid to let it heat up. Ethan walked into the kitchen where Emily was busy preparing a salad. He opened one of the bottles of wine and poured 2 glasses. He left one with Emily and took the other out to the patio, along with the bottle, which he placed on a small table. After a while, Emily brought the salad. Ethan took this as cue to start cooking the steaks and threw them on the hot grill. "It will take about 10 minutes, he said. Emily handed Ethan her glass of wine and raised it as if about to make a toast. "What are we going to fry?" Zay asked, but immediately regretted what he said. "I don't know what you want to drink, but my toast is to my fervent hope that you will eventually let me into your life." This toast made Ethan a little embarrassed. "We'll talk later," he said, returning to tend to the sizzling steaks. Several awkward minutes passed until Ethan announced that the steaks were ready and placed each one on a plate, which he placed on the table. Both Ethan and Emily ate a large portion of salad. Ethan was about to start eating when he stopped and looked at Emily. "I'm sorry things turned out this way. That's all," he said. Ethan's statement was so harsh that it caught Emily off guard for a moment. It looked like she was about to cry. She reached across the table and took Ethan's hand. "Thank you," she said. "I was so afraid that you thought I willingly slept with someone and that you would never forgive me." Zan continued. "Sometimes I thought if I hadn't kicked you out of the house, this would never have happened," still clutching Ethan's hand. Emily said, "None of this was your fault. It was only I was a stupid old woman who allowed herself to be charmed by a smooth-talking salesman. I will never forgive myself for hurting you the way I did, and I will spend the rest of my life trying to make up for it if you let me well. Lettuce goes a long way in that regard," Ethan said to lighten the mood after dinner when the dishes were washed and put away. Ethan asked Emily if she wanted to watch a movie. When she said yes, he asked her if she had any chick flicks she would like to see. Emily told him she wanted him to put on a movie that he wanted to see. "You know I like action movies that are rated R for violence, nudity, sex and language. It's normal," she replied. "I want to see everything you want to see. I'll watch chick flicks with my daughters and girlfriends." Ethan looked at a few options on Netflix and chose something that he thought he would like and that met his criteria. "The film is starting," he announced. Emily came out of the bathroom where she had freshened up. She was wearing his favorite rose-scented perfume. Without asking, she pressed herself so close to him that he had to put his hand on her shoulder. When he did, Emily laid her head on his chest and they continued watching the movie. It didn't escape Ethan's notice that Emily's skirt was hiked up above mid-thigh and the top buttons of her sweater were unrevealing a fair amount of cleavage. Ethan always thought Emily was hot. However, it was the events that unfolded around her date that completely turned him away from her, no matter how physically beautiful and sexy she was. The movie was less than halfway through before Ethan realized that Emily was asleep and breathing easily. He continued to let her sleep until the movie ended and then gently woke her up. "You're going to let me stay the night, aren't you?" she asked, standing up because she continued. "I don't think I should be driving home this late." Besides, she added, I brought my pajamas with me. Yeah, you can stay, Ethan agreed, as Emily disappeared into the guest bedroom. Ethan was turning off the TV and lights when Emily reappeared wearing the sexiest black baby doll Meg Elze had ever seen. This stunned him for a moment. How do you like my new pajamas? Emily asked, posing for Ethan and speaking in a seductive voice. I like her, Ethan said, looking intently at his wife. I forgot how sexy you can be when you want to impress me. Emily, encouraged, walked up to Ethan and wrapped her arms around his neck, pressing her body against his. I don't want either of us to sleep alone tonight, she whispered in his ear. Emily could feel her husband reacting to her almost naked body. I know you haven't fully forgiven me for what I did, but please don't let that stop you from enjoying this evening to the fullest. You can do whatever you want to me. Any resistance Ethan had to Emily's charms melted away in an instant. Her lips were waiting for him as he kissed her passionately. As they shared along, a kiss, Ethan pushed Emily's hair back, causing her head to fall back as well. Ethan kissed his wife's throat and then her neck. Emily moaned heavily and said quietly, yes. Yes. Ethan picked his wife up, carried her into his bedroom and threw her roughly onto the bed. Emily held out her arms to Ethan as he rolled onto the bed. How could I have thought that having fun with that slick jerk of a merchant could be better than this? Emily thought, as she arched her back and pressed her chest to Zeawa's face. Ethan didn't disappoint her. Over the past few months, he's accumulated a lot of sexual energy and Emily looked much more attractive than she had at any time in years. Ethan thought to himself, maybe a break from everyday life is the key to random great sex. That night, Ethan and Emily went a few rounds before falling asleep in each other's arms. The next morning over breakfast on the patio, Emily asked in a pleading voice, Ethan, I think you know how bad I feel about the way I treated you. You should also know that I will never do anything like that again. I know what will happen to me if I do this, but we have been separated for almost 6 months. Don't you think it's time to return home and resume our life together as it was? Then stopped eating and wiped his mouth with a napkin, thinking about his answer. Emily, I thought about it, but I changed my mind. First of all, this house is too big for me right now. When we had 3 growing children, it was perfect, but now it's just not possible. Besides, I never really fit in with our neighbors. They are all college graduates and professional people, while I barely have a high school diploma. I never had much in common with them, but you make at least as much money as they do on the houses you renovate. Our house has been renovated much better than most in the area thanks to your contractor and landscaper friends. What I'm trying to say, Emily, is that this is my home now. This is where I want to live. These are the kind of neighbors I want to have when completely renovated. This home will be the perfect size and function for my needs. No, Emily, I'm not going back to my old house. However, it is paid for. I consider it a great investment. You are completely free to live there as long as you want. Emily's face suddenly became sad. Oh, Zane, this is not what I wanted. Emily quickly stood up from the table. I have to go, she announced, putting on a brave face. In just a few minutes, Emily gathered all her things and walked out the door. Ethan felt bad. He didn't mean to hurt her like that. However, he was sure that he wanted to live in his new house and make it his new home. He didn't hear anything from Emily for 2 weeks. Then late Friday afternoon there was a knock on his door. When he opened it, Emily was standing there with 3 suitcases. I have to more in the car, she said. What's happening? Then asked as he stepped aside, letting Emily pass and taking her 3rd suitcase. Emily sat down. Her 2 suitcases, turned around, wrapped her arms around Ethan's neck and kissed him passionately. If you want to live in this house, then this is my house too. I don't think you'll like this house, Emily. It barely has the space you need for all your stuff, especially clothes. In another house, you have clothes in every bedroom closet. Even in the guest room, there is only half a closet where guests can hang their clothes. I gave away almost all my clothes. Most of what I have left is in these suitcases in the trunk of the car. Still, she said boldly, you'll have to come up with a little more wardrobe space than what you have. Ethan already knew that the master bedroom had very little closet space, and he had tentative plans to open up a wall to the adjacent bedroom, which he used as an office. What about work? Ethan asked. This place is a 45-minute drive from your office, and morning and afternoon traffic jams are even longer. I don't have a job anymore, Emily said. I submitted my resignation. It wasn't much fun to work all day and then come home to an empty house. I was still the talk of the office, and there were even some salespeople who indirectly attacked me based on the rumor that were going around. Besides, you always told me that you enough money that I don't need to work. So now I'm not going to. Emily, Ethan said critically. I know you don't want to sit in a small house all day. There will be no one to talk to, not even the neighbors. In most of these families, both husband and wife work, with the exception of wives who care for babies and small children. I thought I could do some charity work, even though my bachelor's degree was outdated. I earned a bachelor's degree in accounting and a minor in psychology. Additionally, I studied Spanish in both high school and college. I thought I could help in the area of broken families and battered women. And the first broken family I want to restore is mine with that. Emily hugged and kissed her husband again. Ethan already knew he was going to win her back. He just didn't know how to do it. Emily took the lead. I hope you didn't give away all your sexy cocktail dresses and dancing shoes. Ethan whispered in her ear. Here, I have a couple left. Why do you ask? I just thought it would be nice if we went on a fancy date once a month, if not more. Ethan replied, I wouldn't mind sometimes dressing up in a dark suit and going out dancing with a beautiful woman who looks absolutely alluring in a sexy cocktail dress. I might even want to splurge on a night in a fancy hotel room rather than ride home. Emily was beaming with joy. I'd like to do that too, she said, and once again passionately kissed her husband with her whole body. Welcome home, Emily, Ethan said as he picked up his wife and carried her into the bedroom. Thank you for tuning in. If you enjoyed this episode of the story, please give it a like, and don't forget to subscribe to get notifications for updates.